Good morning, everybody. I'm going to call to order our subcommittee on general government. Thanks again for being back here. Mr. Clerk, if you would.
Chair Braybeck.
Here.
Representatives Hood.
Present.
Puri.
Here.
O'Neill.
Present.
Speckloff.
Present.
Fenster.
Here.
Minority Vice Chair Boland.
Here.
Representatives Lightning.
Here.
Kuhn.
Here.
All members are present. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So last week, we got to have the overview from House Fiscal for our entire budget. Our next several meetings are going to be doing the deeper dives into the departments or different parts of the departments. And to that end, we have 3 presentations today. And so we are going to get started with that, just get rolling on. We get to hear a lot and learn a lot over these next couple of weeks. So we're just going to get right into it, unless anyone has any objections. Okay, let's do a couple of housekeeping things. We don't have any absent members. And Rep. Leitner moves to approve the minutes from the previous meeting without any objection. The minutes are approved. So first, we're going to hear from the Prosecuting Attorneys Coordinating Council. We have Sherry, I don't want to pronounce your name incorrectly, your last name. Bruinsma. Yes, perfect. So she's going to talk about their ongoing work and the FY25 recommendations. Thanks for being here this morning. And everyone should have a packet in front of them.
Good morning, Chair Brayback and members of the committee. Thank you very much for taking time this morning to hear about PAC and the impact that it has on prosecutors across our state. PAC is the Type 1 autonomous division under the Attorney General's office, and we are an agency with a small budget that has a large impact on criminal justice matters in the state of Michigan. I'm not going to go through the whole PowerPoint. It just has some background information for you that you're welcome to look at, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on. But I do want to highlight a few of the issues that PAC is facing in the coming fiscal years. One of the things that many of you, I'm sure, have heard about is the prosecutor shortage that's going on not only in our state, but across the country. What has happened in Michigan's prosecutors' offices is that they have lost many longtime experienced attorneys and are in the position to bring in new, less experienced attorneys that need a lot of training and a lot of assistance. Because of that, PAC's requests for increase from prosecutors' offices for direct legal assistance and research assistance has gone up in the last number of years. Additionally, we are having cases come through that have impacted the caseloads of prosecutors, the most recent being People v. Poole, which will require resentencings for juvenile life without parole sentences on cases that near 300, which is close to the amount that went through the original time. Now, there are questions that were left unanswered by the current court opinions regarding procedure and how these cases will play out that PAC will assist the offices in trying to find the answers to. And we do that with research assistance and legal assistance when we're asked by the counties, but we also do that by providing trainings and by getting together the different experts in the offices on these various topics to discuss these types of issues. Another way in which the shortage has impacted PAC is that we've been assisting prosecutors with their recruiting efforts. PAC has gone to open houses at law schools. We've been seeking ways to get information out to law schools about the work that prosecutors do in their communities and the role that they play in their community to try to generate interest in the younger students in a career in prosecution. In fiscal year 22-23, PAC received a small increase in our budget that we used to hire 2 training attorneys. I'm happy to report to this committee that those attorneys have had a major impact on our operations. They've been able to provide new trainings via podcasts on various topics, such as Brady, and they've also been producing what have become very popular quick reference guides. These guides are sheets of paper that prosecuting attorneys and their assistants can take into the courtroom with them that has legal precedent and legal analysis in a very short, easy-to-read summary, and that they have available to them whenever they are in court. They have been very popular, and people have really appreciated having those resources. Because of the increased need for training and increased assistance, PAC is requesting a budget increase this year of $1 million. That would bring our budget up to $3.2 million. And with those added resources, we would be able to bring on more training attorneys to provide more direct assistance to the people that are in the prosecutor's offices. That direct assistance has become crucial because these attorneys coming in don't have the long-time APAs to train them that they once had. PAC is stepping in to fill that role and provide that assistance, and it's one of the best ways we have to train these newer attorneys that are coming into prosecution. In addition, though, PAC has trainings that we provide once per year that we need to provide many more times throughout the year. One of those is the basic training that is designed for prosecutors that have less than a year of experience. Right now, we are only able to offer that training one time per year, and we always have a wait list. We could offer that training at least 2, if not 3 more times during the year. This would also enable us to be able to train the new assistant prosecutors more quickly after they come into office, rather than waiting perhaps 6 months or a year. The other training that we consistently have a wait list for is what we call our felony trial practice training. This training is aimed at prosecutors who have experience with misdemeanor cases, but are going on to handle felony cases, which require a different level of understanding of motion practice, as well as a more in-depth understanding of the rules of evidence. That training could also be provided several times a year for the people who are transitioning into that felony casework. The other part of our budget that I think is important to give the committee an update on is the IT project that we've been working on for a number of years. You all will know that we received $10 million in last year's budget to be able to help the prosecutors transition to a new and updated case management system. I'm excited to report that in fiscal year 2023-24, 25 counties will be rolling out that new system, and that we will have spent $5 million of that budget. That means that we still have about half of the counties left that will need to be rolled out in the following budget year. We will use a lot of the rest of that money during that time frame, but will require additional funding because there's more work left to do. This initial $10 million covers the rollout for the counties. It covers the first several years of their operating costs, but it does not include several items which they will need in order to make the system run efficiently for their offices. That includes the ability to have and pull certain information from the system via reports that will have to be built for the system. It also will require some of the counties hooking into the current Michigan VINE system, which is the Victim Information Notification System that provides information to victims on their cases as they go through the court system. So we will be needing to ask for additional funding to get the system fully up and running for the rest of the counties, and for the counties to have everything they need from the updated case management system. PAC has appreciated the financial support that we've been given by the legislature, and will continue to seek out to perform our mission of assisting prosecutors across the state. I am happy to take any questions that the committee might have.
Rep. Leitner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for presenting today. I have a question in regards to one of your charts, and it's in regard to comparisons to other budgets. And obviously, I see the one for MIDC. I think scale is a budget that's not necessarily relevant for comparison to me personally, but I'm just curious, with the additional standards that are implemented each year, and especially I think this year, in regards to wages, is that a lot of your challenge there because there's not parity in the wages between prosecutors and then indigent defense?
That's certainly a big factor.
What's
definitely.
what's the range, the range of salary with most of the prosecutors? I mean, obviously it depends on where you're at, but can you give me a range of what it is right now, and then what the range, just on the record, for MIDC is for those?
Yeah, I don't know the MIDC numbers off the top of my head.
Okay.
I would be glad to pull that information. I know for prosecutors, like you said, it really does vary significantly from county to county. Oftentimes, the larger counties are able to offer a higher salary than a lot of the smaller counties do. PAC does provide a salary report that we do a survey of the prosecutors' offices. And in some of the smaller offices, you could have an APA that's making about $40,000. Some of the larger offices, that may go up to 60 for a new prosecutor. There are a few offices that are fortunate enough to be offering in the higher 70s and perhaps low 80s, but it really is a wide range of salaries, and for the majority of the offices, they can't offer what MIDC is to be able to compete with them, and that's not even talking about competing with those that are in private practice that have much higher salaries than either MIDC or the prosecutors are able to earn or offer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rep. Kuhn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you have any statistics on the turnover or lack of staffing in the prosecutors' offices around the state?
So each of the offices have their individual information on those things. We don't have anything that PAC compiles as to the level of turnover that's been happening in the offices. I can tell you that I've been in prosecution for 25 years, and that our webpage that has the listings for the prosecutors' offices that have openings has never been larger in my career. We frequently have 20-plus openings for these positions, and I frequently hear from prosecutors that they are not getting applicants. You know, they have positions open for 5, 6 months, a year, and they're getting 1 or 2 applicants, and frequently the applicants that they do receive are, like I said, either new out of law school people with not much experience, or people that just don't have any prosecution experience. So it is a very difficult situation for a lot of the offices.
Okay, and Madam Chair, can I ask another one? Your webpage, do you have all the prosecutors' openings in the state?
Our webpage has every opening that a prosecutor asks us to post. So they do reach out to us to request that their openings be put on our website. I personally don't know of any offices that don't put them on our website, because for prosecutor or assistant prosecutors that are, looking for opportunities, that's usually where they go. So I can't, tell you for 100% certainty that we have every single position, but I know that, that's where the offices want to post them, because that's where people look for the roles.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
welcome.
Chair.
Of course. I have one question. You were talking about the IT project that we allocated $10 million for last session, and you indicated that there was going to be more that was needed. Number one, do you know the number? Number two, when do you anticipate that ask coming? Or is that included in the 1 million?
It is not included.
Okay, so when
in
do
the
you
1 million.
anticipate that coming? What is the number?
Yeah, so we expect it will be another $5 million, and we anticipate that ask to be in the next fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, that's super helpful. Colleagues, any other questions for the director? Okay, thank you, Director. Appreciate
Thank
you being here.
I appreciate your time.
All right, colleagues, next we have folks from the Michigan Gaming Control Board. We have Henry William, the Executive Director, Bob Simon, the Deputy Director, and Jasmine Tompkins, who is the Legend External Affairs Director. Welcome to all of you.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, committee members. Thank you for having us here today. We have a very brief presentation for you today that Jasmine Tompkins and Bob Simon will deliver, and then we're available for any questions at the conclusion of their presentation. Thank you.
Okay, as he stated, I'm Jasmine Tompkins, our Director of Legislative and External Affairs. We'll start with some quick background that I'm sure you're all experts in by now. But we over at the Michigan Gaming Control Board, we have regulatory authority of a couple acts and rules. We always start with our Michigan Gaming Control and Revenue Act. That's the one that gives us authority over the Detroit land-based casinos as well as retail sports betting. In 2002, we have audit authority over the payments that are supposed to be made per the tribal compacts. In 2010, we were given regulatory authority of the horse racing law and admin rules for our one track that was left in the state. In 2012, we were given regulatory authority over the Millionaire Party charitable gaming regulations, so we do that. While lottery, another department, has all the rest of charitable gaming, we do regulate millionaire parties. And then in 2019, we took over, or we started with iGaming, internet sports betting, and fantasy rules that are now done, admin act and rules. For all of those acts and rules, we do the licensing for all the entities in this industry. We do the enforcement, making sure all the rules for every act and rules that I just mentioned are followed. We do the auditing for verification of tax purposes. We have our own gaming lab that tests the slot machines, the gaming devices, and any gaming software. And then we, of course, maintain the both responsible gaming databases. So you have the disassociated persons list, which is for the in-person casinos, and then you have the responsible gaming database for online gaming.
Good morning, I'm Bob Simon with the Deputy Director with the board. So the first slide I have just shows the total gaming revenue in the state. So tribal gaming was a little bit over $1.5 billion, iGaming $1.7 billion, Detroit casinos about $1.3 billion, iSports $223 million, and fantasy contests about $22 million, and then horse racing 46.1 from live and simulcast wagering, and another 88.4 from advanced deposit wagering. The Bingo Act had $65.4 million in chip sales, and $5.4 million of that went to the charities. And then this next slide shows for non-MGCB funds and entities what they receive from that gaming revenue. So the Equine Fund, $6.2 million. Local units of government got $71.2. The Strategic Fund, $73.5. City of Detroit, about $255 million. School Aid Fund, about $430. Compulsive Gaming Prevention Fund, $3 million. And the First Responders Fund, $4 million. And then we put a slide in here for responsible gaming just to point out that the operators spend almost $500 million annually on iGaming, iSports, and fantasy contests, advertising to get people to gamble. It's quite a chunk of money. Last year, we received an ongoing annual appropriation of $3 million to advertise for responsible gaming, to put the message out there to people to, if you do it responsibly. And we have a contract with King Media for that advertising campaign, and you can see there in the little pie chart that we do out-of-home, radio, TV, and social media ads. And then has the counties, throughout the state that we advertise in. Next slide shows the governor's recommended budget compared to our current year budget. We always like to point out that there's no general fund money in our budget. 33 of our staff are union employees, represented by 3 unions listed there. All of these line items include economic increases. The casino gaming control and administration line, we're asking for 14 additional positions, and that's mainly due, and I'll talk about it more later, but mainly due to the new programs, the iGaming, iSports, and fantasy contests. We're still catching up to that. And then we're also coordinating with DHHS to provide more funding for their compulsive gaming prevention fund and it runs a program for problem gamblers. Currently, the contribution is $1 million from those 2 funds. We're looking to bump it up to $4 million total from those 2 funds, iGaming and iSports. And then the next slide is mentioned, asking for $1.9 million for 14 FTEs. The 3 newer programs for us, iGaming, iSports, and fantasy, continue to have a workload that we're still kind of catching up to as it evolves. Recently, part of the increase in workload has been due to the expansion of the live dealer offerings. We licensed another provider in 2023, and also we have more people in the state self-excluding from legalized gaming activities. If these positions were approved, some of the things they'd be working on, auditing and regulatory efforts for iGaming and iSports, processing increased game submissions for IT technology used for internet gaming, licensing and investigation support, investigating and responding to patron complaints, and then as far as responsible gaming, so providing information and resources on responsible gaming, attending outreach efforts, and assisting with the Don't Regret advertising program for responsible gaming. Also processing additional applications and placements and removals for our disassociated persons list program and the responsible gaming database. And then criminal investigations of illegal gaming sites and illegal gambling machines. That really concludes our presentation. Happy to take questions if you have some.
Thank you so much. Rep Hood.
Thank you. I notice you have a Department for Responsible Gambling, excuse me. I am curious how the state is approaching capturing data on the percentage of the population gambling and then subsequently with gambling disorders. And if that is publicly reported, how do we understand how the increase, particularly with online betting, I'm curious to see if we see changes in the amount of people experiencing gambling disorders.
We have been meeting monthly with DHHS, and I know that they're hoping with this increased funds that they can do more research, and that's one of the things that they want to look into. So we don't have that because problem gaming would be DHHS's baby, but that is something that they want to include in their new research.
How do the two spaces interact? Tell me more about that intersection.
So we do
Your department and
responsible
theirs.
gaming, so it's like if you're gonna bet, take $10 and don't bet over $10. And for the people that actually have a problem with gambling, the compulsive gamblers, as they call them, that's when you get into prevention and treatment, and that's when you go to DHHS.
And does DHHS track overall public health data across the state?
I believe so, but I can double check. I know they have been tracking the increase in their hotline calls, and then they have their prevention. So I think they have the data for you, but I can double check and make sure either us or them get it to you.
Thank you so much. I
Of course.
appreciate it.
Colleagues, any other questions? I have one. Bob, I'm just wondering if you can, I didn't quite understand the sentence, the volume of participants self-excluding from legalized gaming. So are you saying that folks who have participated now are then, which would make them participants, are now excluding themselves from that and continues to rise? What does that mean?
So self-excluding means, so for the Detroit casinos, for iGaming, iSports, people can choose to self-exclude them from those activities, right? And so what we're saying is the numbers of people self-excluding are going up.
So people are showing up to casinos and then not participating in a particular type?
They're choosing not to. They're choosing to remove themselves. They can't, like, for example, the Detroit casinos, if you get on a disassociated persons list, it's a minimum of 5 years. You cannot go into
Right.
a Detroit casino, and if you do, it's a criminal trespass. You can ask to get off that list after 5 years, but that is an example. But with the implementation of iGaming and iSports, we've just seen, because there's more legalized forms of gambling,
yeah.
there's more people getting on the list.
Interesting. Rep Steckloff. Can one of you help? She needs a mic.
Thank you, Chair. Spencer, let me use your mic. Thank you. This is a bad spot.
Yeah, it's not a great spot.
And I cannot remember, so forgive me if I'm wrong. I believe last term, we passed a law where now you're only paying taxes on your winnings as opposed to all play. Did that not pass? And do we know what the difference in tax capture was?
That's interesting.
I remember
question.
the act that you're talking about. It did pass, but I think that's a Treasury question.
Okay. Thank you.
They will be here, and can you put a pin in that? Remember that?
Just remind me.
Okay. I'll try to remind you too. I'll write myself a note. Rep Menser.
Thank you, Chair. I just, I'm looking at, you know, and it is the Treasury budget, but here under gaming control, you're asking for an additional 14 FTE positions that would perform auditing, licensing, and investigations. And then you're looking at another $1 million in state-restricted funding to support efforts to sell and promote lottery products. While also under lottery operations, it includes $405,800 to support sales or promotion of lottery games. It just seems like that's kind of like duplication.
Yeah, it's, so there are two different asks. The first ask for staffing is for Gaming Control Board, and then that second ask for promoting of sales is for lottery. So they run the state lottery and the things that you can buy in the gas stations. That's what that ask is about. So that's not us. That's not the same ask from the same department. We're two separate departments.
I'm sorry, but under Michigan State Lottery, it says includes $1 million in state-restricted funding to support efforts to sell and promote. And then under lottery operations, it includes $540,800 in restricted funding for lottery operations, and of that, $405,000 would be used to support sales and promotion of lottery games online and in retail. So,
Yep, that's all lottery's asking. I think lottery's coming.
So Rep. Menser, lottery will come with Treasury as well.
Okay.
So I'm actually literally writing Treasury right now about your questions.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
So, of course.
thank you.
Thank you.
Rep. Puri.
Thank you. Thank you both for the presentation here. With the growth of internet gaming, my question kind of builds on the previous one about just what efforts are being taken to either advance efforts or put things into the budget for responsible gaming and kind of address compulsive gaming and things of that nature.
So the $3 million that you all so graciously let us have ongoing last year for the Don't Regret the Bet campaign is our efforts to do the responsible gaming piece of that. So we have the commercials, the billboards, we do all those things, and then we have our own responsible gaming section in-house that goes to community events and encourages people to do their responsible gaming due diligence as far as betting and whatnot. The compulsive gaming, our efforts at putting more funding into the compulsive gaming fund is asking for the increase of $4 million between our LIGA and LISBA funds to go to DHHS for more money into that fund.
And a quick follow-up, Chair, please. Just on that, I guess, what metrics can we use to just understand the effectiveness of these campaigns and to just make sure these things are working?
So on our Don't Regret the Bet campaign, actually, if you look in your folders, we did put specialized paper for the counties in your district that shows you the impressions, so we at least know that people are seeing it. They're seeing our social media advertising and are listening to our podcast, so we can see that, and that's what we have so far. Yeah.
Any other questions? Did you have a question, Rep. Kuhn? Yes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On this, the Compulsive Gaming Prevention Fund is run by DHHS, correct?
Yes.
So do you have any other involvement other than giving them an additional $3 million this year?
The act currently says that just we're all supposed to talk about how it's spent. So between us, lottery, and DHHS, we all meet to make sure that there are metrics and look at the things.
So
and where the money's
there are metrics, and that's something. How frequently do you meet to discuss that?
We meet monthly. DHHS does have an annual report that they put out to show increase in call volume and where money is going, and so they put that out on their website.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
course.
Chair.
Of course. You're good? Okay. Everyone? Any more questions? We will get more questions answered with lottery. I've sent them a heads up so that they know. So thank you so much for being here. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. All right, we have one final presentation today, colleagues. We have the State Personnel Director, John Ganatke, who is the Director of the Civil Service Commission, the CSC. He's going to be presenting on their ongoing work and then our budget. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair. update on the commission and our role and budget. The state constitution establishes the commission with 4 unpaid commissioners who are appointed by the governor to staggered 8-year terms. The Constitution also establishes my position in the classified civil service to administer the commission's powers and guarantees an appropriation to the Civil Service Commission to complete the regulatory activities assigned it under the Constitution. Our primary constitutional core duties we're charged with providing a comprehensive and balanced employment system for the executive branch staff who carry out the program activities and mandates set by the governor and the legislature. Major elements of that include classification and compensation plans to attract, retain, and motivate a workforce, a selection process that responds to state agencies' needs and is accessible to the hundreds of thousands of applicants every year for our civil service positions, and a labor relations system that includes collective bargaining and dispute resolution processes. I've included, just for your reference, an organizational chart of our entity showing the high-level bureaus and divisions. In terms of our staff, almost 2/3 of them are located in HR operations. These are the employees that provide consultative HR services to agencies. Before 2008, all of those HR staff would have been employees of the individual departments that they were servicing, but under an executive order in 2007, those staff were consolidated under the Civil Service Commission, and we kind of grew, we almost tripled overnight. We had about 30 minutes notice that the executive order was coming out. So the other 1/3 of our staff are performing those core constitutional regulatory activities for our civil service system, in addition to some shared service models, providing some consolidated services, and also support for the HR IT systems to support the state. This slide shows the proposed Civil Service Commission budget for this year. It reflects a continuation budget with just a roughly 2.2% increase, an adjustment reflecting increases in economic factors based on cost of living increases for the upcoming fiscal year. The one other item in the DTMB budget from the executive budget recommendation is an administration proposal for a new one-time $31.5 million of funding for a 3-year program to match employee contributions to dependent care accounts. The Civil Service Commission and my staff administer the state's flexible spending account program, but the specific designs for any such program would first be collectively bargained by the Office of the State Employer. State Employer Lisa Esmond-Olson has been kind enough to join us today in case there are any specific questions about that proposal that she would be in a better position to answer. But with that, if there are any questions for me about civil service or for Lisa about the dependent care line item, be willing to answer those.
Thank you all for being here. Rep. Leitner has our first question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is in regards to the dependent care, because I think in one of the other documents, it, said a number that they wanted, but when you did the math, it was like $9 million. And so do we really anticipate that many more people utilizing that program in the state? Because what was proposed in the early part of the budget, the math worked out to 9 million, because I asked if my math was wrong or something. Because the number that they were listed that they wanted to support was more than funded with that 30 million, 31, I don't know, whatever it was, 31 million. It's just, it's recorded, that's why.
We believe that we will see an increase in the number of people participating from those who are currently, because there is a match. It is a dollar for dollar match up to $2,500. So we do anticipate an increase.
I just turned it on. Sorry.
Rep. Owen.
Thank you very much. So I think somebody made a statement in regards to you want the money, you're asking for this increase so then you can go and negotiate a union contract with the benefit? Did I hear that right?
Well, we need to have the money in place so we can go and negotiate with all of the 8 unions in the state system to put it in place, because it has to be part of their bargained contract.
And so basically we'd fund it before we negotiate, so they'd know it was there.
That
so-
doesn't mean that they all want it, though.
Potentially, what is the full range of dollar amount that would cost us? Every single union employee were to take advantage of this benefit, what is that total cost?
Well, there's 35,000 union employees, and I don't want to be mean, but some of us are a little longer in the tooth and don't need childcare credits. We have, because of the parental leave, seen a significant increase in the number of people making babies for the state of Michigan. And so we anticipate that because of that, we'll see an increased need in the number of employees in general, not just union members, who will be participating in this program. We currently have about 1,200, and we anticipate that potentially doubling.
But the exposure could be up to 35,000.
Well, no, because there's a whole bunch of us who've already had our kids and have no interest in having more. I mean, as those people stay in the system, they won't be using it. We are hopeful, though, that we will see an increase because we have people who are retiring and we need to bring new people into the system. And this is one of the ways we're doing that is for recruitment and retention purposes.
Thank you.
Rep. Hood?
Can we get some clarification around the issue with the Civil Service Commission delaying retention bonuses for correction officers and any resolution that we've achieved?
Yes. The commission at its December meeting had several proposals for retention bonuses. One for represented employees, a separate variety for correction officers for various classes at Michigan Department of Corrections in the security unit, and then one for NERIs as well. The commission approved at the December meeting the requested 2,250 ratification bonuses for the bargaining units that did ratify their contracts and present the reopened third years for the commission's approval at their December meeting. There were questions from some commissioners leading to them to not take final action at the December meeting for the MCO, for the corrections officers. There were questions about, there were, I believe, 5 musts and shall conditions placed in the boilerplate requiring action before December 1st. And the agreements were not entered before December 1st or presented to the commission for action before December 1st. So there were questions from some commissioners as to the legal effect. Could those boilerplate dollars, appropriated dollars, be used contrary to requirements in the boilerplate? Subsequent to the meeting, we received correspondence from legislators involved with that boilerplate indicating that no, it was not an obstacle to the spending of those funds that were earmarked to pay for those bonuses. And shortly after that, I believe on December 23rd, sometime ahead of Christmas, I believe, I granted interim approval of those with the consent of the chair, and then those were granted final approval at the commission's meeting earlier this month. In terms of the NERI bonuses, there were questions about the availability of funding mid-fiscal year to pay those to over 10,000 non-represented employees under existing fiscal year budgets that did not have those as part of the planning process last year. And there were also some questions about the design of the bonuses and making it available to part-time or non-career employees like student assistants. And so the commissioners asked for additional information. That was provided, and they were satisfied with the funding questions being resolved. And at their February 7th meeting, they approved those as well. And so there was a slight modification to the original circulated proposal in that there'll be a prorating for the non-career NERI employees, so that if they only worked half-time between October 1st and the December 23rd date included in the initial proposal, they'll only get half of that $2,250 bonus. If they worked full-time, they'll get the full, so it's prorated based on the percentage of hours worked. But that also, in that slightly modified form, was approved on February 7th to be paid as soon as administratively feasible. So my staff and staff from the State Budget Office are working to try to get those payments processed.
Rep. Kuhn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just another follow-up on the dependent care. You mentioned something about it being a 3-year program. Is this 31.5 million 3 years, 1 year?
It's for all 3 years. We're putting it in as a work project so we can have it happen for the whole 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Rep. Steckloff.
Thank you. Back before the '08 recession, state legislators made more, and they got more in a living stipend. With the cost of inflation, they're saying we should be about $25,000 to $30,000 more than we're making now. Why is it that the Civil Service Commission continuously says no to any sort of raise?
For legislators? The state constitution establishes the State Officers Compensation Commission, which is the process responsible for that. Now, Civil Service Commission staff provide administrative support, but that is a committee, or the commission makes their recommendation, their gubernatorial appointments. I know I've sent letters to the legislature and to the administration and to the other elected officials every year back to that point in time, asking for any proposals, and to date I have not received any since the recession for the legislators seeking. So it meets in the odd-numbered year between January and May or June, and then they present that recommendation, like I just saw the coverage in the media about the justices and their proposal. They have been historically the only ones that have ever appeared and asked. So we typically send to the minority and the majority leadership in both houses correspondence, and then typically I send a second one when the commissioners say, are you sure they have nothing to say? And so the next opportunity under the constitutionally provided process will be in January of '25. And again, that can only take effect 2 years in the future. But yeah, it's down net 10% since 2002 because there was that 10% decrease. That was the last time we've heard from elected officials asking for a pay increase.
And none of us are here to make money. I mean, I think that's clear. We all took pay cuts to be here. But I read in the summer that the Civil Service Commission said yes to judges and no to the legislature.
So,
am I thinking of something else?
The legislature, so a system developed where the previous legislation tie-barred the Court of Appeals and the trial court judges to the Supreme Court justice's salary. After a decade or so, I don't know the exact date, but it was sometime 15, 16, 17, something like that, the statute was amended, and so they became tie-barred to the commission's approved increases for NERIs, the non-exclusively represented civil servants' pay. So at that point, the trial court judges and the Court of Appeals judges started getting cost of living increases, which created the kind of absurd situation now where they have leapfrogged the justices, and they may potentially have the trial court judges leapfrogging the justices in a few years without additional increases. So that is the commission has no role in setting judicial pay. Commission staff assist a separate constitutionally created body that makes recommendations that the legislature, both houses, must then approve for it to take effect following the next election.
So we would have to fix that legislatively?
Well, you would need to fix the process, you'd need a constitutional amendment.
Okay,
because
constitutional amendment.
In 2002, there were some rather unpopular 30-some-ish% increases that led to a constitutional amendment that was adopted by the citizens at the next election. It used to be that it was on autopilot, and unless a supermajority, it might have been a flat majority, unless legislative action stopped it, they automatically took effect. And so when those 32%-ish increases were allowed to take effect without any vote on it, they switched it now so that it requires affirmative action by the legislature to adopt any changes, which has led to kind of this stagnation of wages since 2002.
Okay, thank you.
Colleagues, any other questions today? Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, colleagues, that is it for today. We got through 3 presentations. We'll have more next week. Please, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I appreciate you all being here. The meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.